Welcome to another deep dive tailored just for you.
Glad to be here.
This time, we're tackling a single book packed with different topics. We're talking climate change, green energy, got shifting masculinity, cancel culture, education, religion, even societal trends are thrown in there.
Sounds like a lot.
It is, but the interesting thing is how the author ties it all together. You know, it's like a big conversation about how values and power dynamics are shifting in society. Pretty relevant stuff, especially if you're questioning the mainstream narratives.
Yeah, definitely. It's like looking beneath the surface, finding these unexpected connections.
Okay, so right off the bat, the author makes this bold claim. He says, figures like Al Gore have made a fortune from climate alarmism. What's your take on that? Is there any truth to it?
Well, the book digs into the money behind the whole climate change industry, right? Governments, NGOs, corporations, they all profit from this sense of urgency and fear.
So the more dire the predictions, the more funding they get.
Exact. It's like a system where alarmism is rewarded.
Interesting. So it's not about denying climate change, but more about questioning the motives behind certain policies.
Right. And the author argues that some of these policies, like those pushing green energy, can actually backfire.
How so?
Think about it. Higher taxes, energy bills going through the roof, job losses in traditional energy sectors.
Yeah, you're right. Everything seems so expensive these days, especially energy.
Exactly. And then the book digs even deeper, questioning those green technologies themselves. Wind farms, solar panels, electric cars.
It's funny, everyone's pushing go green, but what about the downside?
Yeah, he brings up some important points. Like, did you know solar panel waste is a huge problem? It's hazardous too.
Really? I never thought about that.
And then there's the whole issue of relying on China for those rare earth minerals, the ones needed for all those green technologies. It's a geopolitical risk.
Oh, it's like you said, peeling back the layers of the onion.
Definitely. And he doesn't hold back on those celebrities and politicians either. The ones who preach about climate change while living these lavish, high-carbon lifestyles.
Oh yeah, that hypocrisy is hard to miss.
It highlights this gap between the elites and the rest of us, right? Like, who's really paying the price for these policies?
It's a good question. But moving on from climate change, the book takes a sharp turn into what it calls the war on men. Tense, right? What's he getting at here?
Well, he's focusing on how masculinity is portrayed these days, in media, society. He compares those classic tough guys like John Wayne to the kind of men you see in movies and TV shows now.
Flawed, less heroic.
Exactly. And he sees this as a reflection of how masculinity is being devalued.
And he uses the term misandry to describe this. That's a strong word. What exactly does he mean by that?
Basically, prejudice against men. He gives all these examples of what he sees as misandrist rhetoric and double standard. Dating, relationships, even the workplace.
Like those sitcom dads who are always portrayed as incompetent.
Exactly. It's become so normal, right?
Totally. And he points out those feminist talking points that demonize men, the whole toxic masculinity thing.
It's like men are constantly being judged and held to different standards than women.
And it can have real consequences, right? Like on their self-esteem, their relationship.
Absolutely. It's a subtle but pervasive form of discrimination.
It's like men are walking on eggshells these days, afraid to express themselves.
Yeah, and that ties into his whole take on cancel culture, which he straight up calls tyranny.
Is that a fair assessment, you think?
Well, he believes this whole cancel culture thing creates this climate of fear. People are afraid to speak their minds because they might get shamed or ostracized.
He even shares some personal anecdotes, right?
Yeah, about how this fear has impacted him, made him self-censor. He talks about how it's affecting open dialogue, making people afraid to even disagree.
And it's not just about silencing opposing views, right? Anyone can be a target these days.
Totally. One wrong move online, and your life can be turned upside down. He breaks down the whole mechanism of cancel culture, the public shaming, the online mobs.
The way social media just amplifies everything.
Exactly. It's like everyone's on edge, afraid to say the wrong thing. It's like we're losing the ability to disagree respectfully, to have those tough conversations.
It's definitely something I've noticed in my own life. Social media can be a scary place sometimes. You never know what might set people off.
It really makes you question, doesn't it? Like, how much has this fear of being canceled impacted your own life?
That's a good question. Something we all need to think about.
It's interesting how he connects that fear to what's happening in education. He uses the term education indoctrination. And honestly, it's not hard to see why. He talks about teachers pushing political agendas, revising history to fit a certain narrative, and a lack of critical thinking.
Yeah, it's scary to think that instead of teaching kids how to think, some schools are more focused on what they should think. He brings up the 1619 Project specifically, seeing it as a distortion of American history.
Yeah, he's really critical of how history is being taught these days, like focusing only on the negative and ignoring all the good stuff that's come from Western civilization.
It's like they're only telling one side of the story.
Right. And it goes beyond just the curriculum. It talks about discipline, emotional safety, all these safe spaces and trigger warnings.
It's like they're coddling kids instead of preparing them for the real world.
Exactly. He thinks education should focus on things like critical thinking skills, resilience, traditional values.
Makes sense. It's about giving kids the tools to navigate the world, not shielding them from it. Okay, this next one is fascinating. He talks about the current cultural landscape as a battle between religion versus secular progressivism. What's his take on that?
He sees religion as under attack. Basically, these secular forces are trying to chip away at traditional values. He contrasts that with religion, which offers this clear moral framework, a sense of community.
Yeah, and he argues that the decline of religion has led to some of the social problems we see today. Social isolation, mental health issues, that feeling of emptiness.
He looks back at how religion played a role in positive movements like the civil rights movement. He also talks about the support religious institutions offer.
Right. That sense of belonging, purpose, something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. And he feels like secular progressivism, despite its good intentions, doesn't always provide that.
Interesting. Okay, brace yourself. He doesn't mince words when talking about multiculturalism and mass immigration. He even calls it a failed experiment.
He feels like multiculturalism, while a nice idea in theory, has led to a lot of conflict and unrest. And he argues that political correctness has prevented honest discussions about the downsides.
He brings up that case in the UK, the Rotherham grooming gang. That's a tough one to talk about.
It is, but he uses it to illustrate his point, like how ignoring these challenges doesn't make them go away.
And so he's not against immigration entirely, but
he wants more balanced policies, ones that focus on assimilation, on building a cohesive society.
Yeah, that shared sense of values and culture makes sense. Okay, get ready for this one political correctness and humor. He thinks political correctness has gone too far, stifling comedy and making it less funny.
He talks about comedians who have been criticized or canceled for jokes that some people find offensive.
It's like they're walking on eggshells, afraid to push any boundary.
Right. He mentions Chris Rock, Jerry Seinfeld. Those guys have spoken out about this too.
He feels like humor can be a powerful tool for social commentary.
Exactly. And that political correctness is robbing us of that.
It's like we can't even laugh at ourselves anymore.
He contrasts those older comedians like Richard Pryor, George Carlin, with the more cautious comedians today.
It's sad, isn't it? Like they're self-censoring out of fear.
He's not a fan of woke comedy either. He finds it sanitized, lacking that real humor.
He misses that fearlessness, the willingness to challenge societal norms.
Exactly. He praises guys like Ricky Gervais, Dave Chappelle. They still push those boundaries.
Okay, let's talk about big government. He uses the phrase, the failure of big government, which sets a pretty clear tone.
He's skeptical of big government programs and policies, arguing that they often backfire and hurt the very people they're supposed to help.
Like he mentions the European Union's Green Deal and how its regulations have increased energy prices and hurt the economy.
He's not just talking about Europe, though. He brings up the Solyndra scandal in the U.S.
That solar company that went bankrupt after receiving millions in government loans.
Exactly. He uses that as an example of government intervention gone wrong.
So he believes the free market is more efficient.
Yeah, he's all about individual initiative and competition driving innovation and progress, less government intervention, right? He thinks big government can create dependency and erode personal responsibility.
Like with welfare programs.
He feels like while those programs might be well-intentioned, they can trap people in a cycle of poverty.
It's an interesting perspective. A limited role for government, more power to individuals and communities.
Exactly. He sees big government as a threat to individual liberty, and he provides lots of examples to support his argument.
Interesting. It's a different perspective than what we usually hear. Okay, going back to education, he doesn't stop at the K-12 level. He's critical of what he sees as ideological indoctrination happening at universities, too.
Yeah, he feels like universities are pushing a specific agenda instead of encouraging critical thinking.
And he provides some examples.
He talks about certain content being incorporated into the curriculum, students being punished for expressing dissenting views.
Like what?
He specifically mentions critical race theory and gender ideology. He sees those as divisive and harmful.
It's like they're pushing a certain worldview instead of presenting a balanced perspective.
Right. And he criticizes the whole safe space culture on campuses, the suppression of free speech.
It's like they're afraid of open debate and challenging ideas.
Exactly. He feels like universities should be places where ideas are freely exchanged.
But instead, it's become this echo chamber where only certain viewpoints are allowed. He also talks about how history is taught at the university level.
Yeah, he feels like it's often biased, inaccurate. He brings up the 1619 project again here.
It's like they're trying to rewrite history to fit a certain narrative.
Right, and he feels like this is harmful because it prevents students from getting a true understanding of the past.
What does he propose instead?
He advocates for a more balanced and objective approach, one that encourages intellectual diversity.
That makes sense. It's about exposing students to different perspectives, encouraging them to think critically. And speaking of education, he also weighs in on the issue of parental rights, which is a hot topic these days.
He's very strong on this. He believes that parents have a fundamental right to direct their children's upbringing and education.
And he feels like that right is under attack.
Definitely. He sees schools and educators trying to undermine parental authority, pushing agendas that conflict with parental values.
Can you give us some examples?
He talks about schools implementing policies and curricula without parental consent, or even actively discouraging parental involvement.
Like they're trying to cut parents out of the equation.
Yeah, he sees it as a violation of trust. And he provides some specific examples, like introducing controversial topics to young children without parental knowledge.
That's definitely overstepping boundaries.
He also criticizes the use of surveys and questionnaires that collect sensitive information about students without parental consent.
It's like they're trying to bypass parents and indoctrinate kids with a certain ideology.
He encourages parents to be more involved, to attend school board meetings, monitor the curriculum, and communicate with teachers.
Basically take an active role in their children's education.
Exactly. He sees it as a way for parents to protect their children from harmful ideologies.
It's a powerful message, especially for parents who are concerned about what their kids are being exposed to in school. So he's critical of the traditional education system, but what does he offer as alternative?
He's a big proponent of homeschooling. He sees it as a way for parents to reclaim control over their children's education.
And he backs that up with research.
Yeah, he cites studies showing that homeschooled students often do better academically and socially.
So it's not just about sheltering kids, it's about providing a more personalized and effective learning experience.
Right. He also talks about the flexibility and personalized learning opportunities that homeschooling offers. And he challenges the idea that homeschooling isolates kids.
He actually argues that homeschooled kids are often more involved in their community.
Exactly. He sees it as a way for kids to interact with people of all ages and backgrounds.
So it's not just homeschooling. He also talks about other options like private schools, charter schools, online learning.
He's a big advocate for school choice. He thinks parents should have the freedom to choose the best educational options for their kids.
And he supports things like vouchers and education savings accounts.
Definitely. He sees them as empowering parents, especially those from low-income families.
So a diversity of educational options is key. Now, let's move on to the workplace. The author discusses the unique challenges men are facing in today's work environment.
He feels like men are often discriminated against, ironically, because of policies designed to promote diversity and inclusion.
Like how?
He talks about hiring quotas and promotion policies that favor women and minorities, sometimes overlooking qualified male candidates.
It's like the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction.
He sees it as reverse discrimination.
And he argues that it's ultimately harmful to everyone. He also criticizes the way men are portrayed in the media.
Yeah, he feels like the negative stereotypes contribute to a climate of hostility towards men. He specifically talks about the concept of toxic masculinity.
Doesn't buy into that.
He feels like it's a misleading generalization that demonizes all men.
So what does he propose instead?
He wants a more balanced and nuanced view of masculinity, one that recognizes both its strengths and challenges.
It's about recognizing that men are not all the same. He also talks about the challenges men face when it comes to work-life balance.
Yeah, he feels like men are often expected to be both the primary breadwinner and an involved father. It's like they're being pulled in different directions.
And that can lead to stress, burnout.
Exactly. He thinks we need to create a more equitable division of labor within families.
It's a good point. It's about recognizing that both men and women have a role to play in the workplace and at home. Okay, this next one is interesting. The author argues for the importance of male leadership, which is kind of a controversial topic these days.
He believes that male leadership is essential for a healthy society.
Even with all the talk about female empowerment and representation.
He acknowledges that, but he feels like men bring unique qualities and strengths to leadership roles.
Like what?
Decisiveness, risk-taking, a focus on achieving goals.
So he's not saying that women can't be good leaders, but
He thinks men, on average, have a stronger drive to lead and a greater willingness to take responsibility.
and he sees this as a natural biological difference.
Yeah. He also argues that male leadership is particularly important in times of crisis or conflict.
Because men are more likely to step up and take charge.
Exactly. He talks about how men are naturally inclined towards protectiveness and are willing to put themselves at risk.
So he's not afraid to challenge those conventional ideas about gender roles.
Not at all. He feels like we need to recognize the unique contributions that men make to society.
And that their leadership is essential for solving the complex problems we face. Now, he doesn't shy away from discussing the impact of social media on masculinity and free speech.
Yeah, he sees social media as a pretty hostile environment for men.
How so?
He talks about the constant bombardment of negative stereotypes and accusations of toxicity.
If they can't do anything right.
Exactly. And he worries about the impact this negativity has on men's self-esteem and mental health.
It could be really damaging.
He also brings up the issue of censorship.
How social media platforms censor or suppress certain viewpoints.
Right, especially those that challenge feminist orthodoxy or promote traditional masculinity.
He sees it as a form of thought policing.
Definitely. And he gives examples of men who have been banned from social media for expressing their opinion.
It's scary how much power these platforms have.
He talks about how social media algorithms can create echo chambers where people are only exposed to information that confirms their biases.
Yeah, it's like you're trapped in this bubble. So what's his solution?
He advocates for greater awareness of these issues and for a more balanced and nuanced approach to online discourse.
It's about creating a more respectful and tolerant environment where people can express themselves without fear of being attacked or silenced.
Exactly. He encourages men to use social media to connect with each other, share their experiences, and challenge negative stereotypes.
It's about finding that sense of community and support. Now, he tackles a topic that's often swept under the rug: men's mental health.
Yeah, he's very concerned about this. He feels like men are facing a mental health crisis.
Why does he think that?
He talks about societal expectations that discourage men from seeking help and expressing their emotions.
It's that whole man up mentality.
Exactly. And he points to the statistic. Men are far more likely than women to die by suicide.
That's heartbreaking.
He blames the cultural norms that define masculinity, like emotional vulnerability being seen as weakness.
And when they do reach out for help,
He feels like they're often dismissed or told to just tough it out.
it's like their pain isn't being taken seriously.
He thinks we need to create a culture where men feel comfortable talking about their feelings and seeking help.
It's about breaking down those stigmas.
And he encourages men to challenge those harmful stereotypes that prevent them from getting the support they need.
Okay, he also talks about the importance of male friendship and camaraderie, which is something we don't hear much about.
Yeah, he sees strong male friendships as essential for men's well-being.
Like a brotherhood.
Exactly. He thinks men need to connect with other men on a deep level.
Yeah, and he's not just talking about hanging out and watching sports.
Right. He talks about the importance of shared activities, common interests, that sense of camaraderie.
It's about having that support system, that understand.
He's a big believer in male-only spaces, places where men can relax, be themselves, connect without the pressure of societal expectation.
Like what kind of spaces?
Sports teams, social clubs, just informal gatherings with friends, places where they can let their guard down.
So he's advocating for more of that.
Definitely. He criticizes the way modern society often discourages male bonding.
Like it's seen as something suspicious or threatening.
Right. And he feels like this can lead to isolation and loneliness for men.
Yeah. So what's his message?
He wants men to prioritize their friendships, make time for those connections. He sees those bonds as essential for men's well-being.
Yeah. It's like we've forgotten how important those simple connections are. And building on that, he talks about the importance of male mentorship, which seems to be fading away these days.
He sees mentorship as absolutely crucial for how men develop. You know, young men need that guidance from older men to figure out life, build character, become responsible adults.
It's like having a role model to show them the way.
Exactly. He talks about how you can't just give advice, you have to live it too. Show those young guys what it means to be a good man through your actions.
He even mentions how being a mentor benefits the mentors themselves.
It's a two-way street, definitely. Gives those older men purpose, you know, passing on their wisdom, making sure those values live on.
I like that. It's like a cycle. But then he criticizes how society discourages this kind of mentorship.
Yeah, he sees it as part of this individualistic, disconnected culture we live in. We've lost that sense of community, those bonds between generations, and that leaves a lot of young men feeling lost.
So we need to bring back those traditional forms of mentorship.
He thinks so. He wants men to step up and be those role models for the younger generation.
It's a powerful message. Okay, shifting gears a bit, the author goes into male entrepreneurship and innovation. He argues that men have this innate drive to create, build, invent things.
He sees that drive as the engine of human progress, you know. It's all about men being drawn to challenges, wanting to solve problems, make a difference.
He talks a lot about the importance of risk-taking.
He thinks it's essential for innovation. Men are more willing to take those risks, push those boundaries.
And he's not afraid to talk about competition either.
He thinks it's healthy, you know, when it's channeled the right way, pushes people to be their best.
Then he criticizes how society discourages those things, that ambition and risk-taking.
Yeah, it's like they're telling men to play it safe, don't rock the boat.
So what does he want instead?
He wants to see more support for male entrepreneurs, encourage them to chase those dreams, build those businesses.
Okay, this next one is going to be interesting. The author talks about men as protectors.
It's a controversial topic, but he makes a compelling argument. He sees it as this instinctual drive, you know, to protect those who are weaker, women, children. It's been essential for survival throughout history.
And he's not just talking about physical protection.
Right. He talks about providing financial security, creating stability, upholding those moral standards. It's about being a provider, a pillar of strength.
He even points out how Society often demonizes those protective instincts.
Yeah, he feels like male strength and aggression are often misunderstood. We need a more balanced view of masculinity.
One that recognizes both the protective and the nurturing aspects. Makes sense. Okay, this next topic is often misunderstood, even demonized. The author talks about the men's rights movement.
He sees it as a necessary response to the challenges that men face, like a fight for fairness and equality in areas like family law, education, mental health.
So he supports the movement.
He does. He makes it clear that it's not about hating women or trying to undo feminism.
It's about creating a more level playing field.
Right. He highlights those disparities that exist between men and women. Like, did you know men are more likely to be victims of violence, to lose custody of their kids, to suffer in silence with mental health issues?
It's like those issues are often ignored or downplayed.
Exactly. And he criticizes that stereotype that men are all privileged and powerful. It's just not true for a lot of men.
So he wants to bring more attention to these issues.
Definitely. He provides examples of how men's rights are violated. False accusations, unfair custody arrangements, lack of support from male victims.
It's about making sure men have the same protections and support as women.
Exactly.
Okay, shifting gears to a global issue. He talks about the economic impact of radical environmental policies.
He's pretty critical of a lot of the policies being pushed to address climate change. He feels like they're hurting the economy, especially working class community.
He thinks they're more about ideology than sound science.
Yeah, he doesn't think they take into account the economic realities of energy production.
And he gives examples.
Well, carbon taxes, renewable energy mandates, restrictions on fossil fuels, all these things that lead to higher energy prices, job losses, slower economic growth.
So like those who can least afford it end up paying the price.
He also criticizes the way these policies are implemented. Like, they often benefit the wealthy elite while burdening the poor and working class.
So he's not against addressing climate change, but he's advocating for a more balanced approach.
Exactly. One that considers both the environment and the economy.
Makes sense. He seems to be a big believer in finding that middle ground, avoiding those extremes.
Yeah, he sees extremism and ideology as counterproductive. He thinks the best solutions are usually found somewhere in the middle.
So it's about being willing to compromise, to listen to different perspectives.
Exactly. He feels like too many debates are framed as black and white with no room for nuance. Most issues are more complicated than that.
It's about recognizing that there are multiple valid perspectives.
And that we need to be able to disagree respectfully, find that common ground.
He also stresses the importance of critical thinking, especially in this age of social media.
Yeah, we need to be able to evaluate information, separate fact from fiction. Don't just blindly accept everything you see online.
It's about being informed, thinking for yourself. Wow, what a journey this book has been. It's really made me think about a lot of things.
It's definitely a book that stays with you.
So, for our listeners who are intrigued and want to delve deeper, where can they find this book?
It's available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. I highly recommend checking it out.
Well, as always, this deep dive was crafted just for you. We love hearing your thoughts and insights, so keep those coming. And if you have any source material you'd like us to explore, send it our way. Until next time, keep those minds curious.